Good evening, everyone. It is Counselor at Large Julia Mejia. You are tuning in to Woke Women Wednesdays when we talk about all things Black and Brown in the times of COVID. I am your host, and you know what happens at 8 p.m. I put you all out, and on Wednesdays at 11 a.m., you rise and shine at 11 o'clock in the morning with Senator Diane Wilkerson, who gives you the lay of the land. And so we're really extremely happy to be able to have a platform that elevates the work that women across the city of Boston and sometimes even across the country are doing to elevate. So really excited for tonight's guest. It's someone who I met along the campaign trail. She's a fierce advocate, has done a lot of work in the domestic violence space. And she was instrumental in getting D.A. Rollins elected, as well as yours truly. She was out pounding the pavement and raising awareness. And so really grateful to her and her leadership in the community. She is someone who I aspire to be and look up to. And I'm so incredibly grateful for her leadership in this space. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Shakira Story. Yes, Queen.
Hello. How are you? Good to see you.
Good.
You look beautiful.
Thank you, as you do too. So good to be in your presence. So good to be in your presence. Always. Your energy is just like always on point. And so before we even dive into all of the amazing work that you have been up to here, let's just start by introducing yourself. Let our viewers know who you are.
Absolutely. So hello, everyone. My name is Shakira Story. As Councilor Mejia said, I am a fierce and non-apologetic advocate for children and families who are impacted by sexual assault abuse, domestic violence abuse, anything concerning the overall well-being and welfare of children and families. That is my lane. I stick to it. I live by it. It is my passion. I am driven to do this work. I am also
Oh, I think, is it my mic or is it yours? I think you might have gone on mute.
Did I mute?
Now you're good. You're good.
I'm good now? Okay. Yep. So what I was saying was that I'm your neighbor. I'm your friend. I'm your auntie. I'm your cousin. I am no different than who you are. How I began to do this work is because I'm a survivor of domestic violence myself. And having to experience such this traumatic issue, what I consider and what we all know and should understand is a public health issue. And having to go through the rigmarole of going through the criminal justice system and finding out quite personally and firsthand what the loopholes were was devastating. It was devastating for someone who did not understand the courtroom aesthetics. It was devastating for someone who didn't understand the language. I didn't understand the culture of it, if you will. I couldn't understand anything about it. I had to learn it as I went. But thank God that I had the support of Attorney Margot Lindauer and the Northeastern University's Domestic Violence Law Institute, because without them, 4 years later, I don't think my case would have made it as far as we did. And so that is how I became to do the work that I'm doing today.
Yeah. And you're also a scholar. You out here degrees.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about that. Come on. Don't play small.
Okay.
Never let anyone play small on my show. Oh no.
No, absolutely not. So what happened is, and so just so you guys have an understanding of, I have a background in education. I have a degree in education, have been an educator since I was 14 up until even now. And so as I'm sitting in the courtroom and I'm starting to learn more about what's happening, what this means, what that means, what the next steps are, the entire process. Dan Bateson is now an attorney at Dorchester District Court. At that time, he was one of my student law attorneys from Northeastern. And I'm talking and I'm asking him certain questions, and he goes, I think you should go to school to study law. And I just, I'm like not thinking anything of it. So as we continue to go more into it, now that I'm able to, advocate for myself when my attorneys are not there or helping them to advocate for me, I'm starting to understand what other women such as myself were lacking. So now I'm finding myself sitting in the courtroom and helping people to advocate for themselves. And I had an actual person in the courtroom, I don't know what their title was, who said to me, "Excuse me, is that your client? Are you an attorney?" And that's when I said, okay, I think it's time. So I started paying more attention, started doing some reading about it. And I said, you know what? I'm going to go for it. So I applied for it. But let me just also say this. I was in school at Rasmussen University in 2017 when everything came about with my DV case. Because the offender in my case loves to perpetuate the system and knew it at that time better than me, I ended up having to withdraw from school, which at that time I was going for my bachelor's in education. So I took a break, and a year later, here I am, summa cum laude, graduate for criminal justice studies. And with that being said, it was a lot of my personal passion. I made sure everyone knew from beginning entry into studies, this is personal. This is personal for me. This is my life depends on this. So I could have easily skipped the whole student loans and all the drama that came with going to school during COVID, but I needed to know that I knew it for myself. And so with that being said, I went for it. I went for it, and I'm not stopping. I don't know if you know this, but yes, we have graduated with bachelor's in criminal justice study, summa cum laude, but I am now back in school at Rasmussen University to obtain my master's of public health. Because yeah, I see your face, counselor. What happened was the criminal justice piece allowed me to understand the system isn't broken, it was built this way, and who the system is for, right? And so it gave me sort of a thicker skin, if you will, on how to handle something that was already set up to fail me. And not just me, victims, and survivors alike, right? So now what's happening with this Masters of Public Health is I'm learning systems thinking. I'm learning what are these organizational structures doing and why are they operating in such a way? And how do we change that? What's proportionate? What's disproportionate? What does it take to own and operate a company like that? What are the legalities of it all? And just getting a better understanding, because let me be clear, I'm from Dorchester. And until I got connected with the DVI Law Clinic, I had no clue of the organizations within my neighborhood that were supposedly set up to support me as a survivor. So with that being said, once I started to learn how many organizations were in my neighborhood, around the corner, up the street, that failed to support me and didn't take on my case, I, I, I was baffled. I was baffled. I was devastated. I felt like I was singled out. And reason being is because a lot of people know about discrimination for folks who have low finances, but I was discriminated against because of my educational skills. She's able to advocate for herself. She doesn't need us. She's not willing to leave her job. She doesn't need us. She has a vehicle. She has an apartment. She doesn't need us. I can recall calling an organization over the phone and saying what my case was, in desperate need, life or death. And the first thing they said to me was, we have to get you out of there. You have to leave your job. You got to leave everything. Are you willing to do that? Not knowing, I said no. And they made it very clear to me that they could not help me. Wow. And that is why advocacy is very important. But let me also clarify something. I'm just not advocating for this public health issue. My hope and goal is to continue to go into organizations and entities where you're working with close-knit families who are highly impacted by this public health issue, but the people that you have in operation are not fully educated on how to identify victims, how to support victims, how to locate, other organizations and entities to work as a collective to combat these issues. And so we're dealing with a lot of pointing fingers, or that was their issue, that's not our issue, that's that jurisdiction, or that's, and so there was a lot of that for me. And if it happened to me, and if I've seen it happen to the many, many women that I've seen it happen to, I know for a fact it continues today.
Yeah, that's right.
It continues today.
That's right. And like you mentioned earlier, it's all very intentional, right? And the system was designed to keep us doing this.
Absolutely.
And spinning around in circles. And so, that's testimony that is like truth, and nobody can deny that. And we see that in how it shows up in so many different ways. Like, with my mom, when we were on Section 8, you can't have Section 8 if you make X amount of dollars, or if you have a man, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
can get benefits. And so the system has always been designed to tear families apart and to make it harder for us to seek the type of services that we need to truly get out of whatever situation that we're in or poverty. It is a constant struggle. And I think, and I applaud you for not just getting out of it, but exposing it and then teaching and inspiring other people to do just that. So, before we dive into why I invited you here today, can you just share with our viewers why it's so important for people to pursue their purpose with so much passion like you do?
One of the biggest things I tell people all the time, and I had this quote up on my page for a very long time. They tried to bury me, but they didn't know that I was a seed. And one of the things that Coach Ebony has taught me, and I already knew it, but she just amplified the reason. When you show up your whole self, you need to show up intentional and own who you are and make sure that when you leave any space, any relationship, any capacity, that you left change there. And so for me, showing up as fierce as I am and having the experience that I've had, whether they were good or bad, I'm making sure that you know I left it all on the table. And so what you do with it now is totally up to you. And so there's always that leaving the door open. But what I love that you're doing now and having me on and the women that have been before me is that, yes, you can. That's my daughter acting a color. Is that, you know, you've made sure that you've allowed people to come into spaces where they don't have to qualify to be a part of this movement. There's no prerequisites. There's no, you can't sit at this table because you don't know this thing. You've allowed me to advocate and be who I am and do the things that I do the way that I'm doing it without having to hold me under some sort of standard. And I appreciate that. So if I can say anything to anyone about showing up and owning who they are, be great no matter what happens. No matter what happens. Because what I know is every time you walk into a space and you leave a lasting impression, that's free. And that's something that money could never buy. And so that to me is what builds your character, what shapes your integrity, because no one can take or give that. You know what I mean? It's yours.
That's right.
It's yours. So in essence, it's your light.
That's right.
It's your light. It's your light. So everywhere I go, I make sure, you know, as much as I can, that I'm being a light in all that I do.
Wow.
So if I can say that, I think that would be it for me, is to make sure in any space that you show up in, you show up as a light, no matter what.
I love that, and you know that resonates with me because I always encourage people to show up all of who you are and never leave yourself at the door to make other people feel comfortable, because we don't have any time to play small. You know, it's go big or go home. These moments require us to be fully expressed, and you know, as a city councilor, and you know, we won by one vote. I struggle every single day to be all of who I am in spaces that I know I was not wanted in, right? And I think that those are the sort of things that constantly remind me that we kicked that door down because we belonged, and we have to bring these voices into these spaces because they have yet to be heard, right? And I think that that's why I'm so intentional and so unapologetic and fearless. That's the other thing. I made a commitment in 2019 to be unapologetic about these issues, and I continue to be that, because for me it's not just about the seat, it is about the work. And I think that when we lead with conviction and we walk in our purpose, no one at any moment, no one at any moment, at any time, in any place can take that away from you. And that is all we have, y'all. So those who are listening out here and are sitting wondering whether they need to speak up or going back into their office and telling somebody like it is, you got put in that place for a reason, and now is your opportunity.
Absolutely.
Let that light shine. This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. And if you don't like it, put your glasses on, because I'm here for all of it. Period.
Correct. While we're here on this subject, Councilman Mejia, let me say this. You mentioned it, and let me just confirm it so everybody knows. I walked the streets of the city of Boston, and I knocked on the doors in Dorchester, Roxbury, and Mattapan, and Hyde Park, and Chelsea, and Roslindale. And I've talked to the people about Julia Mejia coming to office. And forgive me, but you are exactly what we needed. Because what happens is we're often told to sit there and be pretty, to sit there and be cute and just don't make a scene. Well, guess what? Guess what? Powerful energy is a whole scene. It's a whole scene. You have purpose. And the people who voted for you know that. The people who are questioning it are the people who have a personal agenda that they need to address. I've started to look at this thing like God is using you as an example. And whether you believe in God or not, that's your choice. There's no shade, right? But what I know is we don't get to say to what extent and to what audience and to who we're going to be a light to and when this thing stops. Once you answer that call, when you decided to run, that was it. So it was no longer about you. And that's what I love about your leadership is that you show up for the people. I've seen you walk in to a barbershop in Mattapan and no one spoke English. They all spoke Haitian Creole. And you were like, I'll fix it. And you took out your phone and translated. And immediately they wanted the flyer to vote for you because you allowed them in. You made room for them at the table in a small space. And that's what leadership is about. That's what integrity is. That's how we build real character. It's not about the transactional, I did for you, you did for me. It's about what are you going to do for someone who can do nothing for you in return?
That's right.
And what are you going to do in spaces, right? Where you're doing a thing for someone and in hope that you're going to get this recognition. Are you in a space mentally and emotionally to wait? Because you're doing something great today, but you may not get that response today. And what I love about you is you never stopped. I don't know if you got my message, but really quickly, and I'll close it here. My daughter's class had a assignment about one of one. And the book was basically saying, like, there's only one of me. And I remember the one vote. And everybody's like, did she really? One vote? Really? I don't know. All it takes is that one. Because if I had $1 and you gave me another $1, I have two. But if I had $100 and you gave me $1, I have 101. So if we took that mentality and when it comes to voting and rocking the vote and making conscious decisions to be a part of policy change, this is what happens. This is what happens. We get people who are really about this work. Mm-hmm. And so thank you so much. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. And this is not about me, y'all. So I just gonna flip it right back to Shakira. We're here to listen and learn and get into the weeds of all the work that you've been doing. No, and I appreciate because sometimes it's hard doing this work because I'm getting it from everywhere and everyone and even my own people. And that hurts when you get it from people. But I remain true to myself, to my heart, and I lead with conviction, and that's it. It is what it is. And I don't do this work worried about when I'm going to get elected because I could do this work, win or not. But I love my job. I'm grateful to have it. I want to keep doing it, but it's not one of those things that it's a do or die for me, right? That's what gives me everyday permission
to
show up the way that I do because that's it, Anyways, but it's not about me. I love our audience. You're about to launch a new initiative. You've been working on it. Tell us what it is.
That's right.
And what inspired you to do it and how can people support you? Kind of walk us through.
Right. Okay. Absolutely. So you actually pivoted this whole thing. So Shakira's story is the educator, the facilitator, the advocate for issues related to domestic violence and sexual assault, right? And so what I do is I go into organizations and the one that I've started with that you initiated was Adriana Rains put out a call for a domestic violence trainer, facilitator. And you said, Shakira Robinson, I said, my friend in service, Laverne Gordon. And Adriana said, okay, we'll figure this out. And so she contacted me, and I want to say we're going on year 3 or maybe year 2. I've lost train of thought on that. But you since you've opened that door for me, and Adriana has opened that door for me, and Laverne Gordon has opened that door for advocates such as myself, that is one organization that I have been partnering with as far as educating court-appointed advocates on the impact that domestic violence has on young people, and families as well. And so I am honored to be able to do that. The other thing is, Shakira's Story has partnered with the DVI Law Clinic, where I am a former client, and I know firsthand the value of the work that these graduating law students put in. And so, with that being said, I have sat on platforms to speak at this school as an example of their work. And so, in turn for them paying me, I've asked them to not do that and allow the funds to go to families that they serve. And so, with that being said, Shakira's Story is going into becoming a for-profit organization. And a percentage of that of Shakira's Story will go back to the DVI Law Clinic, because I honestly, I live off of making sure that we give back. I always tell people, how are you reaching out? How are you reaching in? How are you reaching up? And how are you reaching back? And so that is my way of doing that, is to make sure that this organization keeps going. I know they have the funding, they will keep going. But if people like myself, who have been highly impacted by their work, give them their flowers, if you will, I feel like, which I can tell you, I've seen it firsthand, the graduating law students, they go into this thing with a different perspective, because they can see it now. They can see it. They can see the effects of what happens when you intentionally and effectively lead with real change. They see it. And so that is my partnership with them. We do have a private organization meeting about to happen about Shakira's Story, where some folks are wanting to support. And how you can support Shakira's Story is, if you decide you want to do that, you can, make $75 gift card donations to the DVI Law Clinic. You can make a donation to Laverne Gordon's Love Life Now. You can show up and be an ally for Respond Inc. These are organizations, sister organizations that are doing the work. Make sure you show up and support them. Until Shakira's Story is a legal entity, unfortunately, I cannot take funding. So right now, I'm just making sure that my sister services are being supported. How you can help us in the long run is, once we are launched, we will be looking for allies. We will be looking for people to join our team. It's not just me. This isn't about me. The reason why it's called Shakira's Story is because I recall, having conversations with certain family members, and someone said to me, well, you make sure to tell your story. Because what I will tell you is, I stand tall on the shoulders of many women who have experienced what I've experienced. And I've made a sound decision that it stops with me. And so that is why it is Shakira's Story, because I did not want anyone else to tell my children a story about their mother other than what they've seen. Not only that, it was because over the last 3 years, I've lived every day like this could be it. So intentionally, I show up every day, even now, that this could be it. And that is very well my reality today. So Shakira's Story is growing. It is growing. I'm working on a nonprofit organization as well. And what that nonprofit organization speaks to is the secondary victims that are often overlooked. And in my story, and much like other women, it is the children, it is the grandmothers, it is the uncles, it is anyone who has been directly impacted by, mommy was abused and daddy did it. So the entire family dynamics is in shambles. Wow. And no one ever talks about that. When you go to court, it's the victim and the offender, and that's that, right? No one ever talks about the secondary victims. And so that's what the nonprofit is going to be about.
That's so dope. So tell our audience how they can link up with you. What's the best way to connect?
The best way to connect with me is via my social media platforms, Shakira's Story on Facebook, Shakira's Story Robinson on Instagram. You can email me, you can inbox me. My email address is truestoryrobinson@gmail.com. I am always open to speaking to other victims and survivors. We are always open to, collaborating and partnering with others because we understand that this is a public health issue. We also understand that it's going to take us as a collective to combat this problem. It does not end with me.
And that's true story at Gmail, Robinson@gmail.com, right?
Yes,
Letting
ma'am.
everybody
Yes,
know. Letting everybody know I'm about to put you
True story Robinson at gmail.com.
Yeah. And look, I just put it up there. Make sure I spell everything right because I can't really see. Did I do it right? At Shakira Story for socials.
Yes, you did. Shakira Story. Absolutely.
Yep. And
Yes.
then
I do have a Shakira Story page for the business itself. Let's go there. So the reason why it's not up right now is because the offender in my case went on my social media, my personal social media, and pulled photos and talked to himself for some months at a time and said that it was me. And so for a few months, I had to shut all social media down. And so because Shakira's Story, the business page is public, I've had to take it down. But what is happening is it's growing so fast that I'm going to have to reopen that. So it will be back up and running very soon.
that's dope. That's dope. I am so honored to know you, to work alongside you. No, seriously,
Thank you so much. Same here.
You show up and you're grounded and you're about the work and you are unapologetic about who it is you're here to serve and fight for. And we need more of this in the streets, So thank you. And I really love that your organization is really going to support young people, the children, because there isn't really anything that I know of that really looks at, because it's a prevention method, because what you're doing is disrupting the cycle of domestic abuse. And also go for all the kids, right? Because you could become the abuser or you could become the victim, right? And it's really important to really talk about how these dynamics play out, because we're exposed to it and we just go along to get along sometimes. And so I love that piece of like helping to educate the children too. And I'm so glad that you are doing it. And you're here with us today to talk about your work, inspire people to show up.
The other thing that I'm working on is when I was going through, constant court appearances, I was working as an educator for a very large company for many, many years. And I just had this conversation this morning with someone else, but I would get all dressed up to get on the train to go work at a corporate business as a lead teacher, making lots of money, but coming home with a paycheck for $5 sometimes $300, sometimes $100. And I can recall, having to repeat outfits and repeat clothes because I had to save this because I knew I had court coming. And so what we're doing now, what Shakira Story is doing now is I have started Shakira's Closet, and it will be launched at Northeastern's DVI Law Clinic, where we will be able to help victims and survivors who are preparing for court with the least worry of having to figure out what they're going to wear. A lot of people may not be aware of this, but going into a courtroom and not looking the part when you're advocating for yourself, or in a room full of majority of white male attorneys and female attorneys who are dressed to kill, it is intimidating. I don't care how much education you have, how much money you have in the bank, it is intimidating. And so that is how I came up with Shakira's Closet, because I remember being in probate court and a woman showed up and she did not look, you would have thought she was going to bed or she was homeless. Let's be clear. And just off of her appearance, I just watched the judge, the way he talked to her was as if she had no respect coming in the courtroom like that. And so for me, it was like, she didn't have a choice. But although, he wasn't being judgmental, it looked as if he was.
Yeah.
And I watched her, kept fixing herself, and I'm just like, this can't be. This can't be. And so Shakira's Closet is basically furnishing brand new or very gently new used clothes for court appearances, or maybe someone who's coming out of a situation has lost a job or is looking for a job. Maybe they're, going on an interview, or, maybe they have a housing appointment. Anything where we can empower them to show up and be their best selves is what Shakira's Closet is about. My hope is to have a storefront where we can do more, because the education piece of it is the biggest component for me. And so if folks want to help out with Shakira's Closet, we would love to have you. We would love your support. Like I said, right now with Shakira's Closet, the DVI clinic is able to take a gift card up to $75, where the closet will be furnished. And then I can also take clothing and have them here at my home. I would also love the opportunity to be a pop-up shop at the courthouses. Maybe you're leaving today from a hearing and you got court in 2 weeks and you don't know what you're going to wear. Or you need someone to talk to help you, educate you about the process. We're here. We're here. So that's what Shakira's Closet is about.
Okay, so I'm here live. I'm going to make a commitment.
Mm-hmm.
You can only do $75? Can you do
for the school? Yes, you can only do $75. And let me be clear for the record, the school and Attorney Margot Lindauer is not asking me to make mention. I am making mention because I am partnering with them. They're allowing Shakira's Closet to be furnished at their facility. So that was my request to them and how I can help.
So I have two things. One is I have a lot of gently used suits.
We will take them.
And then the other is that I would like to make a $75 gift card donation.
We appreciate you. We appreciate you.
Count on me for that. And let's make it happen, because this is about the village, right?
Absolutely.
This is about all of us doing whatever we can. And you have me as a partner and a co-conspirator in all of this. So thank you. Thank you for joining us. And tell us again one more time.
No problem.
Yes.
You can find me on Shakira Story on Facebook. You can email me at truestoryrobinson@gmail.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn, and any platform you can find me at Shakira Story or Shakira Story Robinson. I'm always open to talking to victims and families of domestic violence, and just helping you process this whole experience and helping you to navigate the criminal justice system, helping you to get some answers to your questions. What I can tell you is my advocacy alone, just me, I have been able to represent families who have lost their children to the DCF system, who are now back in their custody. I have been able to help survivors who have escaped domestic violence issues and are in seeking of citizenship and have been placed in housing. I can tell you that Shakira Story has been able to help over 20 families financially. Whether it be food, whether it be toiletries, whether it be clothing, we have been able to help over 20 families. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful for everyone who's collaborated. Laverne Gordon is one of my sisters in service. She has an organization called Love Life Now. When Shakira Story is low on funding, when Shakira Story needs help with a family, Love Life Now is always answering the call. Thank you so much, Laverne Gordon. Victoria Hellberg over at Respond Inc. is also amazing. Thank you so much for your amazing work. And that's that. Thank you so much, Councilman Mejia, for having me tonight. I am humbled and honored to be with you tonight.
Now, I am grateful for your leadership and looking forward to watching you, not just on the sidelines, but to be alongside you on your journey. And if anything that I can do to help support
that's it.
Clothes and a gift certificate, let me know what else I can do. And thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much.
Evening.
Thank you.
We are at the top of our 30 minutes. We're actually 34 minutes. So we're violating all the FCC laws here, but no, seriously. So no, please don't be sorry. Don't ever apologize. But no, seriously, thank you so much for joining me this evening. Again, Shakira Story. Make sure that you follow her, and let's make it happen. And thank you.
Thank you so much. Mwah. Bye-bye.
Bye. So guys, thank you so very much for joining me. Don't forget, Woke Women Wednesdays. Every Wednesday at 11 o'clock in the morning, you kick off your day at 11 with Senator Diane Wilkerson. And then at 8 p.m., we wrap things up for Woke Women Wednesdays. So don't forget to stay woke. Lots of love. Be good to yourselves, okay? Ciao.